I never really cared about TikTok or BookTok, which is bookish people on TikTok, until the US government started to talk about banning it. And now that that's really close to happening, I think it's something we all need to be concerned about. We all need to think about what that really could mean and what's really happening there. So let's think about what TikTok is for just a minute, because it helps us kind of understand what's happening. So TikTok is really a frictionless video sharing platform, and it's huge. And one of the things that has made it so huge is that it's very easy to find a niche audience and grow that audience, probably easier on TikTok than on any other social media platform. The other thing that's very easy is that it's very easy to monetize. So it's very easy to sell things, it's very easy to promote things, and it's easy to earn some money off of promoting or mentioning products. Much easier than any other social media platform. Certainly easier than YouTube. Talking about the size of TikTok, it's got 150 million users in America. That's a lot of people. Now TikTok is global, so obviously that's not everyone on TikTok, but it's huge. And I'm willing to bet that the users in America are probably also the ones spending and buying things and purchasing through TikTok. So those 150 users are probably very large contributors to the revenue of TikTok. So if you take 150 million off the platform, 150 million users, that's a lot of people. So a couple things happen there. It's a lot of revenue that goes away. And that's obviously going to hurt TikTok. It's probably not going to kill TikTok. TikTok is global. It's a Chinese company. Chinese companies tend to have pretty long-term visions as opposed to American companies. So I don't think that's going to kill TikTok, but it's definitely going to hurt. It's going to make a big difference. But the people it is going to hurt are those 150 million users from America. They're using TikTok. What are they going to do now? Well, here's probably what's going to happen. They're going to use one of the 2.5 platforms that are left. And here are the 2.5 platforms. YouTube, which is owned by Google and Alphabet. Facebook or Instagram, which is basically Meta. The half platform would be X. X is basically, dying, and I don't think X could really compete with TikTok. It's a very different kind of platform. Having said that, it would not be a stretch to think that X will try to attract some of those users. So this kind of leads us to see what's really happening here, is that we're taking away another social media sharing platform. And we're basically just down to YouTube and Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram. And there's a little bit of X there too. So we're down to basically 2.5, So we really have we didn't have a lot of choices to begin with, and now we have even fewer choices. So are we kind of looking at the monopolization of social media, which has probably already happened already, but now we're even more aware of it? I think that's certainly the case. And I think that's concerning for reasons that you might be surprised and that aren't directly related to being a booktuber or a book talker. But those reasons are, first of all, politically and, socially, it's just bad form. TikTok is being singled out because it's a Chinese company. So this is xenophobia, is what this is. This is a fear of foreign companies. TikTok is a Chinese company. That's no secret. America cannot control it. And America cannot align it with its own political and economic interests. It is aligned with Chinese political and economic interests. Probably less so than we want to accept and realize, and probably less so than Facebook, Instagram, and X. But people are really worried about that. They think like, well, if I give my data to TikTok, then I'm giving it to the Chinese government. Well, look, the Chinese government doesn't need TikTok to get your data. I mean, I'm being sarcastic here, but I'm serious. Like, really? You think they created TikTok to capture all of your data? They couldn't get it before that? And you don't think your data is just out there for anyone to have anyways? The problem there is that the US has really bad data protection practices and laws and regulations. So getting rid of TikTok doesn't solve that problem. People were stealing your data before TikTok, they'll steal it after. That doesn't solve that problem. But people think it solves the problem. And that's really what leads me to like the political theater aspect of it. It's this whole like getting tough on China thing. Well, I got news for everybody. You can't get tough on China. Unless you want to live like the Amish or go work in the Rocket Man's factory, you have to buy and stuff from China. You're going to have to do business with China. That's just the way it is. Get over it. Get over it. It's just the way that it is, and it's not going to change. I mean, China is one of the world's largest and probably best and most efficient producers of damn near everything. You know, I mean, let's think about electric vehicles. BYD, which is a Chinese car company, it's called Build Your Dreams, but we call it BYD. They have outpaced Tesla in every car market except the US market. And that's simply because they can't be sold in America. But if they could, they would outdo Tesla because they build good cars, high quality cars that are affordable for working class people, which is something that Tesla can't do. But I digress, and I've wandered off topic here. I have a lot of thoughts on some of these issues. But the larger issue here is basically what looks like government-sanctioned monopolization of social media. And that's significant because social media in America is the only media. It's the only media in America now. No one watches TV. If you watch TV, it's through social media. No one reads newspapers anymore. Magazines are dead and gone. And those things were important because they were part of journalism, and there were best practices, there were regulations about what could be printed, about what could be said and what could not be said. None of that exists on social media. Social media has been left to police itself, and Facebook has basically now said they're not even going to try anymore, that they're instituting community policing, similar to what X does, which doesn't work. And this is all very ironic because one of the other criticisms against TikTok was how easy it could be, and has been, for people to spread misinformation. Well, hello, X has the same problem, Facebook has the same problem. Because they have positioned themselves to be so powerful that they cannot be regulated by the US government. And now that is just going to grow exponentially. And this is all really, really ironic because we used to criticize certain other countries because they would limit people's access to information and to media. But we've just gone and done the same thing. You can just say, well, you know, TikTok, it's not real media, it's just people joking around and blah, 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 blah. But it's part of a larger trend, and that larger trend is the elimination and the reduction of people's choices for platforms to share information, to share their opinions, to share their thoughts and concerns. Now, how does this relate to you as a booktuber or a bookstagrammer or a book talker? Well, let's say you read a novel, and in that novel, there is criticism of a very powerful tech CEO who, among his portfolio of companies, has a media company. And you want to make a video about this book, and you found this book to be very thought-provoking, and it raised some questions for you about the state of, the political state of media and controlling information and controlling access to information. And let's say that you do this on a social media platform owned by a very rich tech CEO who doesn't like criticism. What do you think is going to happen to your video? It's not much of a stretch, is it? We're not too far away from that. I don't think I'm wearing my tinfoil hat when I say that, It's funny because a lot of people get behind, anti-AI content. And that's great. We used to joke about, don't be on Team Skynet. You want to be on the human side. Well, we have a similar problem now. with what's happening in social media. So what can you do? Well, one thing you can do is you can continue to branch out and look for other platforms and other ways and other alternatives. And you can really ask yourself, if I continue using these huge platforms, if I continue using YouTube, if I continue using Instagram or Facebook, how am I using that? Why am I using that? And what's my intent in using that? And if you're looking for community, maybe what you want to do is use that as a way to grow a community outside of that platform. That's something that I've discovered in the last couple of months, and I'm not the only one. People have been doing it before me, but I think this is the way forward and the way to go. And it's also good to support other platforms, whether that's Patreon or whether that's a Discord chat or like Telegram chat groups and things like that. There's other ways to go. And I think that what we really need to do is be careful now about how we're using these huge social media platforms. And we also need to realize that things can go offline. They can take these things away. So if you're still with me, here's the point. You don't need to be concerned about the ban on TikTok because it's going to result in a bunch of sexy influencers coming on to other social media platforms and possibly ruining those platforms. What you need to be concerned about is the lack of choice in social media and the lack of choice in media outlets for people to access and to use to freely express themselves. Because the fewer choices we have for that, the worse everything is going to get.